Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Flock's Nest Podcast. I, as always, am Dallas, repping number 9 of the Baltimore Ravens, Justin Tucker. I know I said I was going to have a new jersey, hasn't come in yet, so as soon as I do, we're going to switch it up. Hopefully get some better juju in here. Thank you for joining me today on my Week 12 preview game of Ravens at Chargers for Monday Night Football. We always start with injuries and then get into each team's sides of the ball, how I think that'll go. And then, of course, I will do a projection. I will say a little teaser, Ravens back in the win column. So starting off with Baltimore's injuries, Arthur Millette and Kane have already been ruled out with injury. They were on the injury report all week. Millette was on it last week, so was Kane. This isn't really a surprise. Questionable, we've got Roquan Smith, Tyler Linderbaum, and Travis Jones. Both Linderbaum and Jones were limited in practice on Saturday. Roquan missed all week, including the walkthrough. That does kind of indicate he probably won't play. Both Zach Orr and John Harbaugh have said they have full confidence, even though he did miss practice all week, that if he was ready to go, he could, and he would be as effective as he always is. We'll kind of see how this plays out. Not practicing, not doing the walkthrough, a hamstring, those can be really finicky. You don't want to re-aggravate it. I don't expect him to play. If he doesn't, Kyle Hamilton, 14, will wear the green dot. He did last week when Roquan went out against the Steelers. So we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into the defense side of things, but it is a big deal. Alrighty, Ravens offense. I've kind of said all year, this team lives and dies by the O-line. When the O-line has a lot of penalties, they can't put points on the board, and they struggle. That is going to be just as true this week. I do think they won't have the struggles they had last week, while the Chargers D-line has been playing at an elite level. They don't have kind of a singular game wrecker like the Browns do, and the Raiders do, and the Chiefs do, and the Steelers do. They don't have a Watt. Even though they have a Bosa, Joey Bosa has just never quite been at that level. So I do think this game is just going to come down to how that O-line plays. If the O-line can play really well and limit the penalties, then I think Lamar and Derrick Henry, they'll definitely get going. Lamar plays great in primetime. The Ravens play really great in primetime. He's got a winning record on Monday Night Football, so I think that's a plus side. I don't think the weight of the game or the eyes or even the time difference is going to be a factor. I know there are a lot of former Ravens on the Chargers, but for the Ravens offense, I don't think that's going to be a real problem. This offense looks way different than it did under Greg Roman. It looks way different than when they had Edwards and Dobbins and all of those guys, so I don't think the Ravens offense is going to really be affected or impacted by the knowledge the former Ravens have on the Chargers team. Special teams wise, Tucker's got to get right. He said after the loss to Pittsburgh that he thinks he's figured out why he's having these struggles, but that's also not the first time this year we've heard that. It's not the first time he kind of got it corrected, and then we saw him revert back. So I do think it's a wait and see. I know the Ravens have full confidence in him. I would love to have full confidence in him. I very much believe he's the GOAT of kickers. I very much believe he's a Hall of Famer, but he's not kicking at that level right now. And he's got to get back to that. To make a championship run, to be a Super Bowl team, you have to take all the points that are available to you, and that includes field goals. So that's a big part of the Ravens game. It's a big part of this team. Got to get right. Hopefully he will. Obviously we'd prefer touchdowns over field goals, but if those situations arise, I'd like to see him make them way more consistently than he has been. Defensively, a little news this week coming out of Baltimore. Eddie Jackson was released, and they picked up Christian Welch. This isn't really a surprise. He didn't travel with the team last week. He was pretty ticked off at how limited his role had been, but he hasn't been playing great. Obviously, we know the pass defense has been a struggle in Baltimore. But Jackson's hustle and effort, it just hasn't quite been up to par. So I'm not necessarily surprised by the move. I also think the Ravens don't like kind of toxic guy energy. They want guys that will take whatever comes to them, whatever reps they can get, and make the most of them. And it sounds like Jackson just wasn't having that kind of mentality. So I'm not surprised the Ravens moved off of him. Um, I think Zach Orrin, Dean Pease have really gotten this defense operating in the direction they want to be. So eliminating the things and the players they need to, I'm all about. Like I said, if Roquan can't go, Hamilton will wear the green dot, but they're definitely going to feel his absence on the field. Roquan is a part of every play, whether he initiates a tackle, he finishes it off. Um, he's just a leader on that defense. He helps keep the guys focused. He helps keep them uh, just operating at the level they should operate. He and Hamilton bring a very specific type of leadership and energy, and I think without him, it will be missed. And when you lose a guy like Roquan or Aaron Donald or um, Bobby Wagner, to replace him isn't as simple as putting him one backup. It becomes kind of replacing by committee. And with the struggles the Ravens defense have had this year, we'll see how successful they are at that. Like I said, I think the Chargers don't have the upper hand with the Ravens offense. I do think the Ravens have the upper hand against the Chargers offense. They know Greg Roman very well. They know his play calling very well. Obviously, they know K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards very well. So I do think the Ravens defense comes in with the slight advantage in terms of understanding how the Chargers are going to operate, what they're going to do, and what they've seen on film and how to execute. Also, the Chargers have been running the ball very well, but the Ravens have the number one run defense. So it's going to be a hard-fought matchup. Moving on to the Chargers side of things. Injuries wise, Hayden Hurst and Denzel Perryman are out. Questionable, Khalil Mack, Deanne Leonard, Bud Dupree, Lad McConkey, Cam Hart, and AJ Finley. We'll see how many of those guys are actually missing come game day. With all of these injuries, Monday Night Football, you kind of have the benefit of an extra day's rest, an extra day to get healed, the recovery work with the trainers, and all of that. So, obviously, hopefully, everybody goes, both teams operating at their highest level. I do think Khalil Mack is kind of the biggest hopeful on the Charger side of things. Defensively, he brings so much to the table, and he is a big part of that team. Offensively, McConkey has been a big part of that offense. He's been a big target for Herbert, so I think if he can't go, they're going to feel that offensively. To the Chargers side of the ball, like I said, I do think the Ravens defense has the upper hand, but the Chargers are running the ball and throwing the ball at such an elite level. I said last week in our normal video that I was really impressed with the way Herbert's playing. I've never seen a ball travel across the field as quickly as he throws it. I think that's definitely going to be a challenge. He throws at such an elite level. I don't want to be one of those people that always says, Lamar, the key to Lamar is making him one-dimensional. I don't want to say that about the Chargers, about the key is making him one-dimensional. But you do have to shut that run game down as best as you can. With Edwards and Herbert and J.K. Dobbins running, you've got to try and keep the game in front of you with the pass game. But that's going to be hard to defend. The Ravens are struggling anyway, but the way Herbert throws the ball, that's going to be hard to do, even without really elite weapons. He's making it look like all of these guys are elite. So, great credit to him. What John Harbaugh has done with this team, energy-wise, culture wise, effort wise, you can just see it. I think they are going to be a real contender in the AFC moving forward, and I think they're really going to give the Chiefs a run for their money moving forward. And you can just see it. You can just see it in every part of this team. The one thing I will say, we kind of noticed last week against the Bengals, and noticed it kind of just going back and looking at some of the Chargers games. They come out really strong, but I think, the 2019 Ravens were like this. They come out really strong, and then as the game goes on, they kind of lose some steam. And so we'll see how they maintain against the aggressiveness and the physicality that the Ravens bring, and see if they can maintain 4 quarters of football. Defensively, Chargers are one of the best red zone defenses in the league. They have a great D line. They have a lot of effort. They had one of the worst defenses last year, and what Jim Harbaugh has brought to this team is that effort, it's that culture, it's that mentality, the physicality. So they have a great defense. The Ravens have one of the best red zone offenses, so I definitely think this is just going to kind of be a slugfest. Who can outlast who can outcoach who, and who can draw up the better plays. And yeah, just see who gets better of who. I do think, like I said, they have a Bosa, but Joey he's not Nick. And so the real struggle against the Ravens has been a game wrecker. The Chargers don't really have a singular game wrecker. So I do think that works in the Ravens' favor. But their D-line is played at a really great level. They've been getting at the quarterback at a really high rate. We saw them sack Joe Burrow multiple times last week, so I definitely think he's gonna have to be on his toes, and I think we might see a little bit more of Lamar keeping it and kind of getting out some of the flashier Lamar escapes the pressure kind of plays. I think is what we'll see a little bit more of this game, with the D line that the Chargers have. But they also have a really great pass defense, with Fulton in the secondary. So we'll see how he lines up and where he's at and how that impacts this team. I kind of talked about coaching. I do think it's noteworthy that John is 2-0 against his brother Jim. Obviously, everyone remembers the Super Bowl of Ravens 49ers, and the Ravens coming out on top there. I think it plays a factor. I don't think it's something that's like in anybody's head. I don't think it's, a mentality thing. I just think it's a little bit of experience. And, John's been coaching at the NFL level for a very long time. I have a lot of respect for John Harbaugh as a coach. I've always put him in the top 5. And I think Jim is a great coach. He's a great culture setter. He's done great things with this team, and I think he will continue to. I just think when it comes down to this game, coaching is going to be a big factor, and I do think John has the slight edge there. And like I said, I also think the Ravens have the edge in terms of knowing the Chargers better than the Chargers are going to know the Ravens better. The Chargers look very different than they did under Greg Roman, but the Chargers look a lot like Greg Roman's offense with Baltimore. So I just think the edge goes to Baltimore there. But I also think it's a good, tough physical matchup. Like I said, number 1 red zone offense against number 1 red zone defense. A shaky pass defense with Justin Herbert's arm. I think it's going to be a slugfest. I think both teams are going to come out really physical. I think Ravens, when they lose, they rarely lose back-to-back. The last time they lost back-to-back games was 2021. So I think they're going to come out with a renewed energy. The one thing I do take note of, the Steelers are a physical team. Everyone talks about how sore you are after a game, and when you play a team like Pittsburgh, you hurt way more afterwards than you do normally. So we'll see kind of how the team is feeling. Like I said, I think having the extra days rest gives the helps, but there's a chance they just don't quite have the energy against the Chargers. But hopefully they come out swinging, come out with all their effort, and we'll see how Dean Pease and Zach Orr do defensively. I think we saw some great changes last week in terms of personnel packages and just how they were going to operate. If they can maintain that and the offense limit the penalties, I do think it's a Ravens win. I'm projecting a score 28-20. I know that doesn't sound very high scoring, but when you think about the physicality of both teams, you think about how both teams operate, it's either really low scoring or really high scoring. And I think they're going to sit somewhere in that middle ground, obviously, with the Ravens getting the edge. So, hope you guys enjoyed. Comment, like us on Twitter, like us on YouTube, subscribe, let us know what you think. We were asked in the comments about the Ravens rookies. I'll talk a little bit more about that next week, as the majority of them sit on the O-line, and that's been kind of where the struggles have been. So in the next week's preview, I will talk more about Ravens rookies and how I think they're doing about midway through the season. Awesome. Thank you. Bye.